Okay. Okay, so yep. Yeah, we're live on YouTube now. So for those who probably get notification for that, we're able to join there. But it's not so many of us on Zoom. So it's preferred for them to join us on Zoom because that way you can be being on Zoom, you can be part of the interaction. Did I hear my voice coming back to me? Okay. Yeah, we're live on YouTube now. So for those who probably get notification for that, we're able to join there. But it's not so many of us on Zoom. So it's preferred for them to join us on Zoom. Where is the? Because that way you can be being on Zoom, you can be part of the interaction. Did I hear my voice coming back to me? Okay. I'm looking for the Zoom. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, yeah, that's fine now. Do I need to just play it? Just mute. Okay, all right. Okay. Welcome everybody. We've gotten some very good feedback on everyone on how their day has been, and that's lovely to hear. And today we'll be looking at service design. For those who are just joining us, and I say that because this program, there's two parts to it. We have the training, just the training bit, and then we have the internship. So we have some people who have been selected to join us on the internship program. We had our first call on that last week, Friday. So, I mean, they've pretty much are in tune in what we are working on here and what we're doing, where we are doing this and all that. So if you were just joining, that means you're attending the training bit alone. You're welcome. So it starts by explaining to you why exactly are we doing this? Why did we decide to do this whole program with the training and the internship, or just so there are, if you remember from the emails, if you remember from the emails that were sent initially when you first registered and all that, there are 6 different tracks to this. You filled the form, you selected the track you wanted. So service design is just one of 6. We have product design, we have project management, we have business analysis, we have research analysis, and then growth marketing. How did we make the decision for those 6 things? Actually, we made the decision for 5 of those based on what our findings are that, should I say, most in-demand skills for fresh graduates. Because, I mean, when we started designing this, fresh graduates was in our mind. Although we soon realized that we have more people that are joining this that are not just fresh graduates. Some people have maybe 10 years experience or something, but are interested in it to say, well, I've not done this particular thing before. I would like to learn it. And interestingly, I wrote an article, not an article, I wrote a post on LinkedIn maybe some months ago about the fact that we need internships that are not only focused on fresh graduates. We need internships that can help even well-experienced people that are looking to start a new career in a different path, or looking to get more expertise or to learn more in a different track. So hence we created this. We made all this decision, like I said, based on fresh graduates, but it's opened up to everyone. So the first 5 of these were determined based on what is in demand. Service design is the one thing that our research did not tell us service design. We made the decision on service design ourselves. And the reason why we made this decision on service design ourselves is that this is one of our own expertise as a team, as an organization, service design. And we also understand that it is, I won't say new, because the whole idea around service design has been around for a while, but something that not a lot of organizations are catching up with yet. So not a lot of people even know anything about it yet. So it's like, okay, what exactly is service design again? Well, one thing is that when it comes to the area of design, there are so many different things you can have around design that sometimes it could get a bit confusing. So you would have, at least the very popular ones are UX design and UI design, but it goes beyond that when you're talking about interaction design, instructional design, talking about a whole lot. Yeah. So, well, here we are today doing this to help us get skills, to give us the knowledge, the wisdom around some of all this career track. And of course, we can't train everything in a short period of time. So what we're expecting is that what we're only doing pretty much is just the introduction, is what we are pretty much delivering here. And so, because sometimes people want, when you want to learn by yourself, you go online and you begin to pour through materials. It gets confusing sometimes because you don't know what is the beginning, what is the end. So the value that these training sessions will really deliver to you pretty much is to give you a truckload of things where you can now personally by yourself pick each of those items, then go out there and do some more research, maybe get books or videos and things like that where you can read more on. So if we're able to give you that learning map on a particular track, then we would have succeeded with this. So let's begin today with service design. Interestingly, this is our first class. Tomorrow, I think, what's happening tomorrow again? I'm not too sure. I know this week we have project management, a class on project management and another class on growth marketing. Then we continue like that. Most of the sessions happen between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The truth is I would have to, some of the dates will change as we go on as well too, because these instructors, but many of the people delivering this training are not necessarily working like for Crestrat or something. Many of these people are people within my network, because I need to make sure that most of these things are things that I'm personally experienced, and I could decide to train almost everything on this, on all the 6 tracks, but I wouldn't be doing justice to a certain extent. So I prefer to say that some people that I know that are also vastly experienced in some areas, just to bring in insights from different places. So these people are people within my network, and they are doing us a favor by coming to deliver these training sessions for us. So as you know, we are not charging anybody for this. We're also unable to pay the people delivering this training. We are doing it because they also love, they also want to pay it forward. They've gone through a path and they would like to help as many people as they can. So anyway, let's focus on the conversation of today, service design. So I would like to ask us, what do we think service design is? What do you think service design is? Anybody wants to respond to that? Let me bring out the chat. Where is it? Chat. Oh my. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, Kende. Tomorrow is project management. And that means Thursday is growth marketing. Okay. So anybody, you want to say anything? Let's get you, drop a comment in the chat window. When you hear service design, what comes to your mind? Interaction between service and design, maybe. Okay. Anybody else? No other response. Okay, maybe I should ask another question now. How a business presents its services to customers. Yeah, good response too. I should ask another question now. If this is your first time that you're coming across service design, yeah, let's know in the chat window. If this is your first time of coming across service design, let's know. This is my first time. You just respond yes. I want to see a number of yes or no. If this is not your first time of coming across service design, then your response should be no. Okay. Okay. I've got all right. Yes. So now a lot of us are coming across service design for the first time. So We're probably more familiar with things like that I mentioned earlier, UI, UX. Some of you are familiar with product design. Product design itself as well, too, is pretty much still catching on. Even a lot of organizations don't even know. A lot of organizations approach even product design differently because it can encompass the entire thing in designing a product. So, but service design is simple. We could say, are we designing a service or are we having a service that is designed? So there is a lot of conversation back and forth on service design as well. So I would also say that even when it comes to service design, you have a bit of different approach. As a matter of fact, every career path or every role does not have the same way of doing things everywhere. Business analysis, different organizations approach it differently. Project management, the same. So there's no one size fits all pretty much. So I sometimes try to shy away from definition because definition might not adequately capture everything, and then you're trying to put a definition in your head. But I try to tell us what something is by just describing it or by telling us a lot more detail about that thing, which is what we will be doing today. But before we go ahead and tell us what it is or show us something that can give us some insight into what it is, let's look at, okay, why is, yep, let's look at this. What is the difference between this before and the after? Your response should just is a two-word response. What's the difference between before and after? Yeah, I know the aesthetics is changed, but what happened? What activity happened to the before that made it to produce the after? Because what we're looking at here is an interior of a house, a living room, and at some point it looked somewhere, another part of the house has changed. There's an activity that has happened, yeah? There's a specific, yeah, a correct response is design. There's a specific field of design that has happened here. What's the response to that? What's it called? Yeah, interior design. Thank you. Interior design. Interior design is what happened to before that produced the after. So now we all have living spaces, but not every of our living spaces has been designed. Many of us, you move into a place, all you just do is buy furniture, throw furniture there, throw your TV there, and you start living in the space. It's a living space already, yeah? But it has not been interior designed. So the same way with service design, services are existing today. So many business, the UK, for instance, well, I think the UK economy is 80% service-based businesses. Your financial services is a service business, insurance is a service business, and consultancy is a service business. Training is a service business. So many businesses today are service-oriented. The UK, I think about 80% of the businesses are service-oriented businesses. However, there is now something else called product servitization. If you, I think someone helped us the other time. If you want to help us again today in the class, when I say something, sometimes I want to capture it in the chat window for the sake of as if you are trying to have like a communal note, so to say. So product servitization. What that is also talking about now is the fact that there are some product-oriented businesses that are now paying more attention to the services, that are now building a service wrap around existing products. So by the time we look at businesses that are predominantly service-based businesses and businesses that are product-oriented that now have a service wrap around it, you realize that almost every business existing today, one way or the other, cannot dodge away from services. Yeah, cannot dodge away one way or the other, can't dodge away from services. And that's why even a place where you just buy goods or something like that, you have the customer service team. Yeah, and customer service is not just what service is limited to. Service is far beyond just what customer service or customer support, or as some companies call it now, customer success, focus on delivering. So whereas so with this explanation here now, that services, you have businesses that are service oriented, like I said, financial services, healthcare services, and all that. So if you look at it, what pretty much on a broad scale now differentiates what services is that service is something that has to an extent a direct interaction with the customers. It does not necessarily mean face to face. It might be virtual interaction with the customers or something, but somehow the business, if you're getting service from a business, more than likely that business have your details, that business have your name, they have some information about you to be able to offer you a service. Yeah, or they have your phone number, they have a way to contact you, your email or something for service to happen. But when you're talking about goods, for instance, you can just walk into a shop, buy your mobile phone from there. You bought your mobile phone, that's good. The company that has produced that mobile phone probably does not have your details. Of course, not really these days. Now they have a way of making sure they capture information on your phone and all that from you. But or let's use cloth, exactly, that's even a better example. So you walk into a shop, you buy cloth, the person who have produced that cloth does not see you, so you've just bought the goods from that person. However, that same that same product can still have a service around it if the interaction you're having, like in the case of who responded earlier that she's sewing clothes, is that Lucia? So for someone like for in our own case now, it's more of a service than a product, because you are sewing tailor-made clothes for each of those people. So without going into a rabbit hole trying to differentiate for us what service and product is, this is something we should all know, or we can all read up and get more clarity upon. So the essence of service design now is, now we know services existing. How do we make sure that these services are being more deliberate? How do we make sure that these services are delivering the results that it should deliver? Hence the need for service design. Like as we've seen here now, the service can be existing without a service design. So there is no conscious effort for putting things together. We just drop sofas, drop table, drop this, and we just make it work like that. But when you make a conscious effort to design it, this is what you get. You move from the before to the after, you get a much better result. If you are selling this house, for instance, now, you can probably make more money from it. Whoever is living in this house now can have a better dream living in this after space. That in whatever case, whoever is living in this house will be happier being in the after than being in the before. And that's the same thing we need to achieve with service design as well too. We want to move people away from the usual experience of just doing the service as it is anyhow, to the point where things are conscious and deliberate, and the customers are getting excellent results, are happy, the business is happy, everything is making good progress. So yeah, so now what is this going to give us the volume? That's not fair if I can't hear. No. Can anybody hear this? I doubt it, because I can't hear it myself. Okay. Always have this issue sometimes presenting remotely. Sometimes I have this challenge. If it was a physical class, for instance, now, that would have been much easier to play out the sound there. So that video is just a 2 minutes video. You can search for it on YouTube. It's a 2 minutes video that talks about service design. It's from a company called NN Group. NN Group, I mean, one of the founders of NN Group is called Don Norman. Yeah. And that's one of the founders of user experience design, UX design. I mean, he created that name. He wrote a book called The Design of Everyday Things. And that book has really influenced design for so many years, and the thinking into design and all that. So he's one of the founders of so I think he came up with that term UX design, and UX design to an extent as well, to form a bit of the foundation of what we do in service design as well too, because in UX design, you're thinking about the user, speaking to the users to make sure you do things in a way that capture I mean, how they should do things and how things should go and all that. But and it lays a bit of foundation. There's a relationship between UX design and service design. Other elements that connects with service design as well too is like your customer experience design as well. Like I mentioned earlier, when you start thinking design, there are a lot of design. You start hearing, you almost want to get lost at which is even which at the moment right now. So customer experience design, the customer service design as well. But service design is looking beyond just customers. It's looking at the entire picture. Like I've said here that the you can have a service without having a service design, but when you pay more attention to it, you're able to make everything fit together and get a better result that way. And okay, so and when you're doing service, when you do service design, the end goal of a service design is to produce a service concept. So that service concept is what tells you everything about the service, what should happen, what needs to fit in, and things like that. So the course of today's session, we'll be looking at what makes up that service concept. And having looked at what makes up the service concept, then we'll look ahead and go, what's the journey, what's the process for you to get to that point of producing the service concept, and what are all the other artifacts? When I say artifacts, I'm referring to like documents that you can also produce that are related to service design as well too. So today I'm just pretty much talking about what needs to be done in terms of service design. So the next session on service design will focus on pretty much the how. So we'll pick some of those artifacts and talk about how to create them, how they look. And the interesting thing is that because we'd have mentioned all of this, some of you would have even taken the step ahead to do some research on it already to find out how all those things work together. So service concept. The service concept, which is the end goal of what a service design is working on. Just like a software developer, when you're a software engineer, your end goal is to produce a software. Yeah, so the service design, the service designer, the end goal is to produce a service concept. So your service concepts, I'm going to skip this particular slide because the reason why I provide this detailed slide is just by the time maybe I share the slides and all that, you can have something to read, but it's a bit too busy to use to present now. So I'll just use this other bit here. So on service design, on the service concept, you have those 4 different elements that makes up the service concept. You have the service organization strategic intent, you have the customer's desires and needs, you have the benefits to the customer, and then you have how the service is being delivered. Yeah. So these things are broad, so to say. Let me take a step back. Something I should have said that since we couldn't play that video. So when you talk about service design is putting everything together, how everything fits together. And there are 3 major things that service design is looking around and making sure that everything works together. And those 3 major things are props, process, and people. Props, process, and people. Props, process, and people. Yeah. So props, some of you might be familiar with the terminology around business when they say people, process, and technology. But in this case, the reason for saying props over technology is because your service, it's not always like technology driven. I mean, the person who is selling, let's say, what's it called now? Someone who is selling snacks by the roadside, for instance, is probably not using any basic technology or IT tool or something in that situation there. So when you look at the props, what are the different things that are used? So props are pretty much either softwares or hardwares that you use in the process of delivering that service. So if you use software, that falls on that prop. Yeah, maybe your website and things like that is a prop. So if you maybe the front of your shop where people come to interact with you, you have a table there, all those things are the props. How they are arranged and everything like that forms as part of the things that the service designer is thinking about. Then your process. What is the process of delivering the service end to end? Like, what do you do first internally? Who passes what to what, and before it gets to the final customer, and even when the customer has been served, what are the feedback? What's the whole loop? How do things happen? So you think around designing the process, as it were. And then the people as well, so is a very essential element in service design. It's like you're thinking the whole thing of who should be in what position, which team do you need in the organization, how many teams do you need, how do you need to divide them and all that. So service design cuts across these three main things: props, process, and people. Looking at those three things and making the best combination of them to deliver an excellent service. So that's what we should have gotten from that video earlier. So now and I'll say that by the time you look at all these three things and trying to design, have a service design and all that, there's, let's say, your report, so to say, or your documentation or whatever, is called the service concept of what you advise on. So that your service concept is containing everything around, we'll be talking around people, process, and props anyway. And but the four main segments or four main elements that fit into that document is your service organization strategic intent. When you're talking about your strategic intent, is like you're telling us what's the strategic focus of the organization. Some of you will start thinking that all these things I'm talking about sounds like a strategy consultant, or it sounds like a management consultant or something like that. Well, the truth is that life is pretty much going in a bit of circles. So the strategy, some of you, so I shared the documents with the guys in the internship program. It's a business design document. And if you look through that document, you begin to realize the difference between normal consulting and design. Is that when you're looking at the strategy consulting and the rest is like a business approach to doing things. But when you permit me to use the word, that's not correct, but permit me to say, when you rename consulting to design, it changes not just the nomenclature, but it changes the approach to doing things. That we're not just working with a fixed set of tools. I think the main thing is the approach that it really talks about here. So I just said all that to answer anybody who is thinking in his mind that, hey, all this you're talking about is pretty much strategy consulting. But the difference here is that when you're thinking from the approach of design, how you approach things changes totally. So now, the strategic intent of the organization is what tells us what is the focus of this organization. What is this organization trying to achieve? Yeah, and one of the ways you can there are different ways that you can capture the strategic intent or the strategic focus of an organization. You could capture this using vision, values, mission, objectives, and metrics. Yeah, this is what is very common. Every business, you go to their website, they have a vision and a mission statement, and maybe their objectives is more internal and how they measure the achievement of those objectives. And you see, from the beginning of vision, mission, and values, a lot of organizations have already missed it from there because we have so many companies today. I can use a lot of Nigerian example here. Okay, so someone can draw on my slide. Interesting. So I can try to talk about Nigeria here because what am I saying? Because I know a lot of us here joining the class are from or in Nigeria. Is that one thing I noticed now? I don't know, maybe some of them have changed now. When you go to the website of a lot of banks in Nigeria, many of them, their vision statement is just saying to be the number one banking institution, to be the number one financial institution, to be the number one this, to be the number one that. Permit me to say that is not a vision statement. That is just a statement of vague ambition. And I say vague ambition because what truly defines number one bank? What truly defines number one financial institution? How will you know if you are now number one? So that's not a vision statement. That's not a mission statement. If you want to, one of the tasks I'm going to give us to do, because so we'll be having a certificate at the end of the training, and to make sure that they're not just giving certificates to people who join the call, mute the call, and go ahead to cook, and then they come out and say, oh, I attended the training and all that. We need to ensure some form of feedback system. So all the things that we've been trained, you'll be expected to do some form of documentation to a feedback loop, pretty much. I was trying to work out something where we can have a more interactive system using there's this Google tool for that, but I've not been able to have enough time to put that all together. So, but let's see if it's possible. We'll do it there so that you can submit your task on that tool. Alternatively, you just document your stuff on a slide or something and just share it with me. So where was I heading before I got to that? Yeah, talking about vision. A lot of organizations just document vague things and call that their vision statement. No, vision should be clear. Why is this company existing? Where are you going to as an organization? So one of the things I want you to do is try to Google the vision and mission statements from companies that are inspiring. One of the ones I love so much is the one from Nike. It's so clear who they are focused on. Athletes. It's so clear what they're trying to deliver for their athletes. And that's why when you watch some Nike adverts, sometimes Nike adverts is not telling you shoes. They're just telling you a story of their mission, what they really want to do to bring out greatness in athletes. That's what they're just talking about. So when you now think of wearing a Nike shoe, buying a Nike shoe, you're not just thinking of the shoe, you are thinking of greatness in your athleticism, if there's a word like that. So still talking about strategic intent, it's very important for an organization to be able to clear, why are we doing this? What is our vision statement? What is our mission? And it should be clear. It should not be to be the number one this or to be the number one that or something. And even if you want to use that ambitious statement that to be the best in this, there needs to be clarity on it. So for instance, if you are a bank, for instance, you can't just say to be the number one bank or something like that. You can say to be the most friendly bank. So now it's still a number one type statement, but you've defined it in a way. So now we know that if I'm looking for a bank that is friendly, this is the bank I should go to be the most customer obsessed, to be the most customer oriented. So you can use that as well. So, but sometimes it's clear when it's not like a statement of comparing with others or something, but a statement that talks about what you are trying to achieve. So there are so many banks, but what makes this bank different? What makes this bank necessary? That's what you should be telling us in your vision and your mission statements. And the values should not just be an extraction of words. Hope. Some people even, another thing that is happening these days is that people want their values to fit into a particular word, acronym. So they just pick anything that fits into the acronym and call it their values. No, values are things that define the culture of the organization. This is how we behave here. And it should many times values of an organization comes from the founders of the organization. What are the things that they were most passionate about? What are the things they really want to see happen and all that? It becomes their value system. And sometimes organizations don't know their values from the beginning. They know it at some point after they realize that how do we behave here? So in essence, your values, which define your culture, is like your internal brand to your employees, so to say. So without turning this class into a strategic blueprint class or something like that, that's just a quick thing just to tell you that when capturing the strategic intent of the organization, there needs to be clarity around it. Because if that is not clear, every other thing may go off in the wrong direction. But when it's clear what the organization is trying to achieve, it would guide all the thinking and all the approach and all the process that the team would go by in the service design for that particular organization. So whether you are working with that organization or you are consulting for that organization, it's important to understand the organization's strategic intent. And in a place where it's not clear, that means your work as a service designer will start from getting clarity on why the organization is existing. Because sometimes you might be working, I've worked with a number of startup companies that is just coming from the idea stage. And then we have to work out all this from what's the vision, what's the mission, what's the this. And another trend happening these days is sometimes some organizations are not stating vision, mission, they just state their mission statement. Anyway, so when you're working with like a company that is just starting, you have to come up from that element. So before you go up to what do you want to deliver? How do we do it? How do you get you more customers? So you start from understanding the organization because it informs everything. Even if you're working in a marketing agency, even if you are even if you're doing market consulting and all that, service design is a knowledge that comes in very handy for you in your toolbox, because you're not just speaking, oh, what do you need? Okay, yeah. We'll create content for you and we'll just do social media ad and you will get enough customers. You spend all that money and you may not get the result. But when you start from understanding the strategic focus of the organization, it will inform the tone of the messaging that you use. It will inform how you speak about the company. There will be a bit of uniformity around what you're saying. It will inform the kind of customers you want to attract. So it will inform all your strategy in the marketing and all that as well. So the strategic intent tells you what the organization really is. And in summary, it doesn't always have to be a long document. Sometimes the strategic intent for an organization can be summarized for you in one sentence. And in that one sentence, you just know what it is. You just know this is it. You can have a full documentation behind it, but that one liner or something tells you what everybody is working towards. Like when the US said we're trying to put a man on the moon, it was a clear strategic intent that on the basis which NASA was created. And after a while, they realized that, oh, we've achieved this strategic intent of putting a man to the moon, then they can evolve and redefine their strategic intent afterwards. Like they were so clear about that intent that there's a popular story about a woman who was a cleaner in NASA, and when the president came visiting and asked her that what's she doing here, she said that she's helping to put a man on the moon, because she understands that our work in that organization is not just about keeping the place clean, it's about getting the organization to achieve its mission. Yeah. So, and that is where service design works out well. Everybody working that are involved in that organization are well integrated. They all know what they are working towards. People don't just think they are working to get paid, or my own work is just to as someone said earlier, that it was it was resolving bugs. Sorry, like you don't just get a developer who say, oh, my work is just to develop a software and get the bugs out. No, even the software developer knows that my work is to help our customers achieve X, Y, Z. So everybody works towards that goal when you are clear about the strategic intent and it's well communicated. So the next thing there is your customers' desires and needs. In your service concept, you need to be clear on who are your customers to even start with before you tell us what are their needs and their desires. It needs to be clear, because at the end of this, we'll talk about some service design principles. And one of it is the fact that when you're working on service design, you focus on the customer's needs, not the business needs itself. You have to work from the customers and work backwards from there. Yeah. Amazon, whose CEO is the richest in the world today, one thing that defines Amazon over and over is customer obsession. They're just over obsessed about their customers. So every time they're trying to define or deliver a solution, they think about their customers and then they work backwards from there. So you don't just do things that nobody is going to use. But when you start from the customers, you are sure that you are solving a real problem. And it's worked for them. The company keeps growing in leaps and bounds. Yeah. So it's very important to get enough clarity on what your customer desires and needs are. We'll talk about that as we go on. How do you capture these needs of your customers? How do you get clarity on it? So you don't just start by delivering a solution. You start by speaking with your customers. If you're familiar with design thinking process, which is an approach you can also use in your service design work, is that you start the service design process has a 5-stage approach. I mean, there are different design thinking approaches, but the one I love the most, one of the most popular ones, starts with empathy, the number 1 stage in design thinking. Then the second thing is empathy. The second thing is define the problem. Then I keep mixing it up sometimes. Empathy, define, ideate. Yeah, empathy, define the problem, ideate, get different ideas and all that. Then the next thing is to prototype. So whatever ideas you've come up with, you come up quick prototype around it, and then you test. So you test the prototype. But those things are not just a continuous, they're not just a step-by-step process. It's a loop. If you Google the design thinking process, sometimes you have this loop thing that shows that you can start from empathy, you can define the problem. Then in the process of ideating for solutions, you might have to go back again to the stage of empathy, speaking to understand your customers better before you come back to prototype. And so it's a continuous learning process. And that's one very key thing when you talk about design. Design is having that continuous learning mindset. Because when you're trying to design a solution, we're not just trying to think the solution from our head. We're not just trying to research the solution from the internet. We are trying to design with the customers, understand the customers, and do things that work for them. So now the next thing that needs to be clear in your service concept is your benefit to the customer. So now you've clarified what their needs are. You need to be clear on what the benefits you're offering them are. So what are you offering, and why is it relevant to the customers? That needs to be clear in your service concept. And the big chunk of your service concept sometimes is how the service is being delivered, because that might involve a lot of documentation about your people, documentation about your process, documentation about the props that will be involved. So, hey, that's service concept. So we started from the end. This is where we are working towards. This is what you want to achieve. If you are on a service design project, this is what you want to deliver at the end. So now we start with, how do you get here? How do you get here? So what's your role in all of this process? Your role pretty much is to start by mapping the current state. So the whole design thing as well too is that we need to know where we are today to be clear on where we are going. So you start by mapping your current state, and some three artifacts that would help you understand where you are today is your stakeholder model, your customer journey map, and your service blueprint. So you capture this on the current existing state of the business. So if the business is existing today, you can capture how they are currently doing it. But if the business is not existing, the business is just about to start, one of the things you might want to capture is, how are those who are in the space today, how are they currently doing it? So you can map the current states of other people already in that space. So by the time you're now coming, you're now knowing that this is the baseline that you now need to build upon. So this is the baseline that you now need to investigate into and say, why is this not working? Why is there a challenge here? And things like that. So it's very important to start by mapping your current state of things, because if you don't have the clarity of where you are today, by the time you tell us where we should be going to, we will have nothing to compare with. We would have nothing to benchmark with. So now the service design activities is starting now. So how do you now go ahead? So in your those initial model that we've talked about, so having documented that, I haven't had that documentation. Probably I should even have maybe had my number one stage as all the different models that you need to document: the stakeholder model, the blueprint, the business model, and all that. But assuming that you got that clarity at the beginning there, now that you should have a baseline of where you are today, using your stakeholder model, your blueprint, to get this is where we are today. Now, for us to now move to where we are going, one of the first things you want to get is get clarity on your business model. Why are we starting from the business model? Is that how many of us has heard about the business model canvas? Business model canvas. If you've heard about it, let me get a yes. If you've not heard about it, let me get a no. In the chat window, yes, no, no, yeah. Okay, yeah. So the business model canvas, at least some of us have heard about it. It looks like most of us haven't. So one of these, we'll look at it in our next class as well. So, but of course, you can read ahead, check it out and learn about it. The business model canvas pretty much is a framework. So instead of writing so many stories of saying I'm putting a business plan together or something like that, you can, in one page, in one sheet, you can put together the main elements of what is going to form whatever idea you say you have together into a business. Someone I respect so much in Nigeria is called Leke Alda. And Leke Alda said something one day that I was like, oh, wow, that's quite exciting. He said that there's a difference between idea and the idea of an idea. So many times people are running around say, I have an idea, I have an idea. I say, no. Say, you don't even have an idea yet. You've only had the idea of an idea. So why I brought in that story is to tell us something, that your business model canvas, when you are able to put together a business model canvas, that is when you can say to us that you have an idea. Before then, you've only gotten an idea of that idea. But when you now put the idea together, when you form a clear picture of it, now putting together a business model canvas does not mean that you are boxing yourself in those framework, but it helps you to document what are your current thoughts together. So in the business model canvas, you talk about the problems that the customers have. You talk about the solution that you're recommending. You talk about the key stakeholders that you'll be working with and all that. So putting all the ideas, when in your service design activity, you start by documenting that, because documenting that presents to every other person that will be working with you that this is what we are trying to achieve. This is the clear point. This is where we are starting from. This is what we think. I love that statement better. This is what we think that we are trying to achieve. Yeah. So now, having done that, you move on to facilitate an initial workshop. And deliberately calling this an initial workshop because you're going to have different workshops. So one thing to be clear of is that when service design is not something you do alone as an individual. Service design is a collaborative effort. So whether you're working with a startup company, even if it's just 2 or 3 of you involved, there needs to be that collaboration. And one thing is that even if you're a startup company, you can invite some other people who can contribute thoughts to you, your friends and family, who can give some insights into what you're thinking as well too. Because design, I keep saying, design is not about just researching, getting some data online and just tell people that this is the decision or this is the best course of action. You get that from a lot of sometimes you get these so-called policy documents sometimes are just based on data. We just say because Finland has done this, then Nigeria can do that. You can't just do research data online and recommend solution for us and tell us that solution is going to work. That is just wishful thinking. But when you are designing a solution, there has to be a deliberate effort of speaking to other people, gathering a lot of ideas. I love to say when you're gathering ideas, gather not a few. Gathering ideas, gathering inputs, gathering thoughts, get as much feedback as possible from so many people. Then you can now begin to extract from all those raw data, raw information that you've gathered together, you can then begin to extract what is best from there. So now, zooming back to initial workshop. So your initial workshop now is the immediate team you have. You've not gone too far yet. The immediate team you have, or the immediate people within your network that can come together and say, you present, this is your business model canvas, this is what we're trying to achieve. Then these people start by asking questions. As you begin to ask questions in that process, you begin to realize there are things you need to think about. And so there are different approaches in all of this. You have brainstorming, brainwriting, brain dumping. These are very similar approach, but there are a bit of different nuances in how they are being implemented as well. So I'll just speak on brainwriting pretty much. Is like, because sometimes when you gather people together and everybody's just talking, sometimes you don't even remember the ideas that has come out. So brainwriting is, instead of a lot of talking, everybody, whatever is in your mind, start writing it, write, and then you present everything that has written. Then the team can have a way of shortlisting all you've had and look through. And so I can write over what you've written, in the sense that you write something, I can add a question there or add an extra thought to it as well too. And someone else could also add an extra thought to that and all that. So in fact, there's even something called brain walking as well too. So which is like, we're not just sitting down. So if you have your team, physically speaking, you can decide to move around in your conversation. Sometimes you can be moving around within the room and things like that. So, but the whole idea is just making sure that everybody's having a continuous conversation. But it's important that you have someone who is facilitating that process. So the person who's facilitating that process is ensuring that some basic rules are met, like you don't shoot down anybody's ideas, you don't disregard any questions at all, just focus on finding what works, try to build on what somebody else has said rather than shooting it down. So you don't just say, oh, that cannot work, oh, that's good, but no, it's like, okay, that's a nice idea, and we can also do this, and we can also, so building up on what everyone is saying and things like that. So, and an approach that can also guide the process of your workshop can be a design thinking or design sprint. So design thinking, as we've mentioned earlier, gives you that approach. So we start from this empathy stage where we are trying to get clarity on what we need to go and find from our people and all that. So the design sprint is a bit different, but very similar to the design thinking approach as well too, which is one thing about design sprint. It was, should I say, originated from Google Ventures. So the design sprint is like trying to get results within like 1 week. So from the first, that means you would have sessions continuously for the next 5 days. So the first day you come around, you're talking about the problem. The second stage, you're talking about ideas. The third day, we pick one of the ideas that we're going to work on and we flesh it out. And then we prototype, build a prototype for it, like on the fourth day. Then we test it on the fifth day, and then we get some feedback on what we've done and things like that. So this, your initial workshop, is just to get everybody to think and bring out thoughts from their head to say, why do we need to design this new service? Why is it essential? All those things. So at this point, you are capturing, at this point of the initial workshop, you are not looking for answers. You are pretty much just looking for questions in all of those things. What are the things you need to investigate deeply and all that? That's what you're pretty much gathering during your initial workshop from the team. Because at this point, you move on to digging deep. Yeah. So, and now let me just be clear to you. So these things we are looking at as a process here now is not like one standardized process somewhere that says this is how you do service design. This is me synthesizing the information of all the things you need to do in your service design process and just giving it some form of nomenclature. Yeah. So all the different things that you, so if you may wonder and say, I can't find this process anywhere online, because there are different approach to it. Design does not have a fixed rule to say you do this, then you do that, then you do this, then you do that, or something like that. No, the whole thing is just to have the idea of everything that needs to be done and have a systematic, progressively move from one level to another in your design level. So digging deep at this point is that from your initial workshop, you're focused on gathering questions and problems and things like that. Digging deep is now trying to get, okay, why is this even a problem? You know that sometimes when we try to solve problems, many people are not even solving the real problem. They are actually solving the symptoms. So the question that was asked to many of us about how are you going to solve unemployment in Nigeria, many of us just started talking about solution. Many did not even dig deep to say what exactly is the problem. Some people made some efforts in saying the problem is this, the problem is that, the problem is this, the problem is that. But that's just what you think. There's no evidence to back that up that that's the real problem. Although we know that, yeah, unemployment is a big issue everywhere in the world. So it's not something that you need to spend so much time trying to investigate what is causing it or something like that. But you might be surprised that in a country like Nigeria, you might be surprised that many people were saying it's the education system, you need people with more skills and all that. You might be surprised that the foundational reason why unemployment is huge in the country is because we don't have reliable power supply, or the internet is not good. When I saw some few people mentioning those fundamental infrastructural things, I was like, yes, these guys are going a different direction from just thinking fix education, get people the right skill. And there are so many people in Nigeria today that are so skilled, they've learned a particular career path, they know it very well, yet they've not been able to get a job. So that tells you that the assumption that is getting the right skill that is the problem is wrong, because some people have gotten all the skill, yet they can't get the job. It's the fundamental thing is because we don't even have enough jobs to start with. So even if everybody is skilled, where are they going to, there's not enough jobs to fill them up and things like that. So digging deep to fundamental issues, because and one way that I love so much when you're trying to dig deep about a particular problem is called the 5 whys. And the 5 whys is, I want us to demonstrate it a bit during this call. So we need one person to facilitate our session. We just have like 5 minutes, so we'll just try to do something at random. So so let's say 2-3 people, so that we don't get lost in a lot of conversation. I think I'll just speak from people who have been giving us enough insight on the call here. So we've gotten Tomisi Michael, Tendai, and Happiness. So those 3 people, if you're able to, if you're happy to do it, if you're not, so we can pick somebody else. Let's quickly demonstrate a 5 whys session. So yes. If those 3 people I mentioned, if you are ready to shoot about trying out the 5 whys, please respond on the chat window that you're ready. Let's tell. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, still missing. Happiness. Are you there? Happiness. Okay. It looks like Happiness is not here now. Let's speak loose. Okay, somebody has jumped up. I was going to call somebody else, but someone has claimed it already. Okay, so we have Tendai, Tomisi, and Ortega. So now, Tendai responded first. So Tendai, give us a problem that we are trying to solve. Give us a problem statement, so to say. Tell us one problem. Any problem.
Okay, perhaps maybe access to education for girls specifically.
Okay, access to education, good. So because we can't have a unified solution that solves the problem everywhere in the world, so give us a location.
Africa, anywhere in Africa.
Okay, let's look Africa. Although there are still different nuances in different geographic locations, but we know this is just a quick exercise. We're not looking to get any perfect answer here. We just want us to see how it works, yeah? So access to quality education in Africa. So now, Tendai, you'll be facilitating this conversation, and Tomisi and Ortega will be giving the response. So if they can come off mute and talk, if they just want to chat, that's equally fine. So now, the 5 whys, your first question is going to be, why is access to education a problem in Africa? Then whatever response they give you, Tendai, you would ask why on that again. Whatever response they give you, you ask why on that again until you get to 5 whys. So let's go. I'm listening.
Okay, cool. Tomisi and Ortega, why is access to quality education a problem in Africa?
It's a problem in Africa because proper structures have not been defined to deliver the form of education that suits Africans per se.
Why?
No, don't just ask why. Phrase your question correctly. So pick what he has said and say why is blah 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 blah.
Okay, so why is it that Africa does not have the proper educational structures to accommodate, if I heard you rightly, to accommodate us to access to quality education?
Africa doesn't have these proper structures because we have indirectly copied structures that have been given to us by the West. We have not been able to sit back to actually understand what structures can be bred from indigenous processes or from the scratch, what works well for us.
Okay.
Why do you think that our initial response to quality education is to copy that of the Western world? Like, why do we feel the need to look at what the West is doing as opposed to creating our own unique structural?
Yeah, I think we do that because we believe that we will be able to achieve our best or to be able to suit the world, because the world is basically ruled by the West, by doing things that that have been prescribed for us to do the way it has been prescribed for us, without seeking to break away and do things and develop structures that actually suit us.
Okay, why do you think that is our mindset? Why do you think our mindset is focused on that specific point?
I think our mindset is focused that way because we are somewhat held economically. We're somehow bound economically to respond to the West. So whatever solution we seek, whatever nation or people seek to develop is usually trumped against rather than accepted, because we are economically dependent on the West. There's noise in the background.
Sorry. Okay. Why do you think our barrier to quality education is most focused on economical issues? Why is it an economical issue?
It's an economical issue because the access to education enables the human mind, enables just about anybody to access to education
enables
you, like I'm going to compare a person as a soil to yes.
I guess your response here should be the question on why are we economically bound to the West that Tendai just asked. Now, why is that an issue? Why are we still bound to that? That's the question.
Okay, we're still economically bound to the West. Okay, I think I'm gonna strain on here because it's gonna give me make me think real.
So that's good. So now you've gotten to the point. Now you see how that initially you were getting the response, because you think that's so. Why is it not working? Because our leaders have not done something about the structure. Okay, initially you would have just thought the solution is let's go and meet our leaders and let them do structure about it, or let us protest so that they would rework the structure. They would have been missing it. But after asking so many whys, you got to the point where they now say, so you now realize that the root of the problem is that you're economically bound to this system, so you have to copy and things like that. So why are you economically bound to the system of the West? Now you've gotten to that point where you can't answer the question again. You now listen to the point of now going out to research for your answers. and then come back to even validate if the responses you're giving are even correct. So now let's try this same approach again with Tomisi. So Tendai, you're asking the questions again. Tomisi, you're giving us the response this time around. Try to take this from a different approach from Ortega so that we can have a more diversified viewpoint. So we, and Tomisi, try to give us some kind of like one line straight responses so that it's easier for Tendai to pick it up and rephrase whatever you've said back to you as a question.
Okay. Okay. Tomisi, why is access to quality education a problem in Africa?
Why is access to education a problem in Africa? Because we are here to do our own thing. We all believe we believe in copying others, and we're here to find out what our thing is exactly. What our own kind of education that. Sir?
Sorry, Tomisi, you are giving us the same response Ortega give us. Give us something else. Okay, let me help you. I'm going to give you the first response, then that will take you in a different direction. So I'm going to say that why access to education is a problem is because getting quality education is too expensive. So Tomisi, pick up from there now when you ask the second why. So
okay.
And then your next why is now that why is quality education expensive? Okay.
Okay. Why is quality education expensive for Africans?
Okay. Why is quality education? Because Africa is said to be one of the poorest continents in this country, in the world, actually, basically, and most people can't afford it. They work below the means of affording what they call it, a quality education. So most people are poor and they can't afford it. So that is quite expensive.
Okay. Why do you think people receiving less than a minimum wage a reason as a barrier for access to quality education?
So Tendai, stop getting the question back to quality education. Focus your next question on what he has said now. So just tell us why are people poor? You understand now?
Oh, okay. Why do you think people don't have enough money to go to school or don't have enough money at all, period?
Why are people poor? Why are people don't have enough money to go to school? I actually think it's well, there are lots of factors that determine these. Which one factor is I probably keep them poor, so they'll be easy to rule. Which most likely what the government is doing basically in Africa. Keep them poor, they'll be easy to rule. You feed them when you need them, and they'll submit to you.
Okay, so why is the government the reason? Why is the government? Why is the conduct of the government a problem?
Okay. Power, simple. It's just power. They want power. They want to keep being in power. It's that simple.
Okay, so why is power a barrier? Why is power the barrier?
Power is not a barrier. Basically, power is a powerful thing. It's more or less like a contagious thing. You have power. After money, you have power, and I don't see power as a barrier. It's what they call it. It's contagious. You need power. That's why most in Nigeria, yeah, that's why most governors after their whole term in office, they go straight to Senate because they want the power. They want to retain the power.
Okay, so why are government officials seeking power?
Why are government officials seeking power? Power does a lot of things, and with power, you have it makes things easier, I guess, in this life. When you have power, you have connection. You have connection, things go smoothly. It's it's just the simple economics, I guess.
Okay, so why does power make things go smoothly?
Oh God. Okay. Why does what? So what's the question again?
You say that power makes things go smoothly in life. So I'm asking, why does power make things go smoothly in life?
Okay. Take this as an example. You go out of school, you need a job. To some, it's just a phone call. They get a job straight after school. Why to some, you guys search for jobs for 9 to 12 months to get a job. So it's the difference between the two graduates are power. One has power, the other is probably just there. So that's how power makes things go smoothly.
Okay, so okay. So they see now that many of you now realize that sometimes, without asking this many whys continuously, a lot of time, many of us have been solving the symptoms when we think we're actually solving the problem. We just pick one thing and think that is the problem, and then we focus on and then we realize that it's not working. Because you realize that why is it not working? Because some people will come with different ideas. Why don't we have access to quality education in Africa? Some people will say, yeah, it's because we don't have enough schools around. Thank you very much, Godday, for that response. Is to get to the root cause, because every problem you have has a root cause. And this 5 whys have another, it's one of the terminology of something called root cause analysis, RCA. By doing a root cause analysis, 5 whys is one of the very popular way of doing that. So it helps you to dig deep and dig deep and dig deep and find a fundamental reason why this thing is existing. Now, the truth is that no one answer is the perfect answer when it comes to issues like this, because issues that are societal problems, there's a terminology they are called in the social impact space, and they are called wicked problems. The reason why they are called wicked problems is because there is no one size fits all. Some people will say that because education is expensive, that's why people are unable to go to school, and that's why they don't get good jobs, and that's why they are poor. So now, a lot of people have gone to school, they are graduated, they don't have jobs. So you now realize that the idea of going to school is not solving the problem of poverty. Then you now say, oh no, even though it's not solving, even though people are not getting jobs, but somehow they are not as poor as they would have been if they didn't go to school at all. Then you're beginning to argue a case there or something like that. So there is no one size fits all for it. There is no one solution that works for everything. It's going to be different pockets of different solution. Like someone said there that, Lucia and Victoria, the response there about Ortega talking about colonialism, there's that because you're copying the system of the West, because it's tied to the West and things like that. For instance, we could even come up to you could be surprised that we could dig deep and we'll realize that the problem that Africa has is because we are trying to speak English. That maybe if Africa stops speaking English, a lot of things are going to change for the better. And now this is me just saying whatever comes to mind. I'm not saying that that's a fact, but I'm just saying how that sometimes when you do this root cause analysis and you dig deep, you'll be surprised at the insights you're going to get, because a lot of people stop at the surface. A lot of companies existing stop at the surface. So those who dig deeper are able to get much deeper insights into these things. And like we've said, issue like this is a wicked problem. So there is no one correct answer for the issue of education here. Some people are just going to say that government should fund it more, make education, access to education to be free, more people are going to come. But no, there are places where education is free and some people don't want to go because it's just stressful for them. They just don't like it. They just want to do their handwork and things like that. So we just realize that at the end of the day, even doing quality education is not about making universities better. It's probably just getting more people to sit down at home and get their career plan by themselves and spend 1 full year of learning from different people. And after 1 year, they've gotten what they want to do and they can start their life. That might eventually be the answer. So, and one thing that Ortega said as well that is very good is about the fact that sometimes you try to copy a system and it's not working for you, and yet you're trying to stick with it. So it's a problem because people need to sit down and think, what is going to work for us in this environment? What is going to work better in this environment? So these are some of those things anyway. So, and the 5 why exercise is not a 5-minute thing. It's not a 1-minute thing. Sometimes you are there. You ask a question and everybody is stuck, and then you're trying to do some online research. You're trying to speak to somebody. You are thinking. You have to go on a break. You come back 1 hour later and say, yes, I think I have the answer now. This is the reason why this is a problem. Then the person asks you another question again. Then you go on again and you are thinking and you're trying to brain rack the whole thing. And that's why I said that it's not an exercise for one person. So these are some of all those things like that. Do you understand? But one thing that is very, 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 very important for you, if you're going to think as a designer, is that you don't hold firmly to your opinions. You don't hold firmly to your answers, because anytime you hold firmly to your opinion or your answers, it will block your mind for seeking for more truth. So don't hold firmly. Yeah, this is it. this is the problem. No, there is no one exact thing that is causing the problem. You need to dig deep and try to find what exactly, and all that. So these are the things. Do you understand now? You start having conversations like this. Oh, this particular country did free education and it worked for them. Another person will come out and say, no, free education is not going to work. This is this one did this. You realize that no country is solving one problem the same way. So people need to think for themselves. People need to try, and that's why it's designed, because you don't launch any perfect solution. Any solution that you come out with, you're only coming out to try it. If it works, you see the results. If it's making good progress, then you expand it to more people. You're not just going to come today and say, yeah, we're going to do this. Bam. No, we should have tried it on a small scale, see that it works, then you expand it even further. For instance, now, this program that we are having, when we launched it, we're like, we want this whole internship program for a lot of people, because I mean, when we look at this is just thinking Nigeria, not even thinking entire Africa now, the number of unemployed graduates is millions and millions. Yeah. And one of the ways to solving, and I really say one of the ways, yeah, it's because there are so many ways. One of the ways you can solve the problem of unemployment in an environment where you have so many people is to export the talents. Because there are places where they have fewer people, because there are some countries that are not reproducing as fast as Africa is reproducing. Nigeria alone, for instance, is 7th most populous nation, and the target that in 30 years, Nigeria will move to become the 3rd most populous nation on earth. So they're going to move all the way to, I think, 500 million or something. Now, the problems on 200 million is huge. Now imagine what it's going to be when it moves to as much as 500. But there are some countries that are not moving at that kind of crazy pace. So some of those people need more talent, and it just means that people need to find a way to get the talent from this place and go over to those places. But nobody's just going to import or export a raw talent. It needs to be refined. It needs to get some form of exposure and all that. And that's one of the things that informed the reason to say, hey, let's roll out this internship program. We have a lot of people out there who are trying to learn. They're learning so many things, but everything is not coming together. Can we give this environment where we train you, we give you opportunity to work on projects, and then you can say, yes, I can say, beat my chest and solidly say that I have this experience. So that gives you an opportunity to say that if you want to go online to freelance, you have story to refer to, you have projects to refer to. If you want to get job, whether in Nigeria, outside Nigeria or something, you have experience to refer to. Do you understand now? It's like what Lucia said earlier, that what if there's a cycle? And this is an example. Why are people not getting jobs? Because they don't have experience. Why don't people have experience? Because they don't have jobs. Why don't they have jobs? Because they don't have experience. Why don't they have experience? Because they don't have. It continues as a cycle, isn't it? Then you say, oh no, we can't solve this problem. Let us stop here. But this is an approach to solving it. Okay, people don't get jobs because they don't have experience. So what can we do to help people get experience? Okay, we can create an opportunity where they can volunteer to do this work, and then they get the experience. Now with the volunteering and they've gotten the experience, they can go ahead and get the job. Simple. So that's why I said that if two things are feeding to each other continuously as a continuous loop, there should be another factor. There's something else we can do to solve the problem, to break the cycle. We can't break, because if lack of this is feeding to this, we can't just break it by doing the same. There has to be something, an external thing that we can do about it, which, like I've just said, now this is one of it. So, and even in your personal life, because when I teach some of all these things, I try to help us understand that some of these skills and this learning is not just things you apply in the place of work. It has to become part of you, who you are. A very inquisitive person. You're always asking questions. You always want to know. You're always doubting what you know. I know this, but I'm not sure that is the final answer. So what we are doing right now with this internship is it's a trial. Gathered 50 people together. I think we've gotten to about 50 something now. It's a trial. If this works out very well, now the next thing we're going to see now is, okay, how are we going to get, so now part of the people who join the program as interns now can answer, okay, even though I've gotten a job now, I'm still happy to volunteer some of my time to do this as well. So now we have some more people that can work with us. This time around, then we can now say, okay, each of you can have a team of 50 each, and we'll give you different projects, and all of you is going to work on it and all that. And boom, 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 before you know it, within a space of a year, if it works out, you might be able to have done thousands of people and giving them such opportunity. But you can't start by just bringing thousands of people. What if it doesn't work? We'll have just wasted a lot of money and effort. So we try this with as little budget as possible, with as little time as possible, to see if it works. Then if it works, then we see how you can scale it and get it to more people. So design is about being very inquisitive, doubting what you know, asking questions continuously. Whatever solution comes to you, try it on a small base. So these are the kind of mindsets that forms the mindset of the designer. Okay, so that is that about digging deep. You need to dig deep. I was going to make an example that about even your personal life, for instance. This is a joke now, because sometimes I like to just make some light side comments sometimes, is that, so that is a joke, for instance. So as a guy, if you ask a lady out and she said, no, I'm not interested in you, don't just walk away. Do 5 why analysis with her. Has anybody tried it here? A lady says she's not interested, ask her why. You say, I'm not interested because. When she tells you that answer, ask why. When she tells you the other one to ask why. Why are you doing your root cause analysis? So you don't go out and fail again. Because some of you probably have 3 failed relationships and you don't do a root cause analysis on it. So you don't even know what is the fundamental problem. And you keep going out repeating the same mistakes because you've not dug deep to find what the fundamental problem is. Yeah? So next time a lady wants to break up with you, or next time a guy wants to break up with you, make sure you do the 5 why analysis. If the person does not agree to 5 why analysis, tell them you're not breaking up. I hope they don't break your head if you don't break up. That's a joke anyway. So let's move on. So document initial learning. So now you've done some of this, you've gathered some stuff together, you've dug deep into the problem. Remember, at this point, we've not even started talking about solution, really. We are just trying to understand what is the problem we want to solve. And we're already in step 4. So now we are trying to document our ideas. These are not confirmed solutions. These are just, so we'll look at the value proposition canvas as well in the next session. So the value proposition canvas has 2 elements. One element is looking at the customer to clearly understand what their needs are. So the value proposition canvas talk about documenting the pains, the gains, and the jobs to be done. Yeah. So some people sometimes will mix it up. Say, what's a customer's pain? A customer's gain is that they want to eliminate pain. That's another. I don't want to get into the detail of that. We'll get into that detail in the next session. I want to give us a broad view of everything. So you see how it works end to end. Then in the next class, we can now begin to go deeper in each of all those things. So now you use the value proposition canvas to now document some of your learning, what you've learned about your customers, and then you move ahead to now get some of all these other insights at this point. So this is high level stuff. It's not, you'll need to come back to it again and validate if it's correct or something. So because the reason why you are documenting as you go is that it guides what you're trying to focus on the next level, because you can't focus on everything. If you talk about quality education, we're going to list about 20 different factors that are causing it. You can't try to solve all it. You pick one first. Then you go on a journey on that one. If at the end you realize that it's a roadblock, you come back again and pick number 2. That's the design mindset. We are not sure this thing is going to work, but we're going to work on it. Then if it doesn't work, we'll come back and pick another option. So that's the idea here. So you just document as you go because it keeps narrowing down what you're trying to focus on. So now you now go research. And this research here is not the type of desk research or online research only. This is real research of speaking to human beings, speaking to users of your solution. So to get real insights, because data can lie. Because most data out there will tell you what you want it to tell you. There is data telling us that coffee is good for your body. There's data telling you that coffee is not good for your body. There's data telling you that it's good to be a vegetarian. There's data telling you that being a vegetarian is not good for your health, even though the strongest man on planet Earth today is a vegetarian. But there's still data that will tell you that it's not good for your health. There's data that tells you to do intermittent fasting. There's data that will tell you not to do it. Do you understand? So data can tell you anything these days. So that's why you dig beyond just data. Look for the people behind the data and speak to them and observe them and understand how these things are done to get unusual insights. Don't design a solution for anybody you've not spoken to. You'll just be joking. You'll just be joking. The guys on the internship program, our first task is to go out and speak to people. And there is no structured way to speaking to them because we don't want these people to be boxed in a particular perspective. You need to gather different perspectives and different ideas, and then you come together and synthesize everything. They might come back now with a list of 100 different problems. Well, of course, you can't solve 100 problems at once. You now have to synthesize it and find which one is the most common or something, and then focus on the ones that can work. So one of the things, approaches that you can do in research is Gemba work. So the Gemba is, I think it's a Japanese term. It means where it happens, yeah, where the actual work is done. So because service design is not just about the customers alone, it's also looking at the people. Remember, when we talk about the service concept we need to provide, there is a place of the strategic intent, which covers how the business organization, the people, and things like that. So, and some other, so you need to understand the people even delivering the service internally. Go and speak, go and sit down behind the customer service team. Some of all those things, if you work as a business analyst or something, you've done things like this. They're called, simply called observation during your requirements and elicitation process. You learn that the business analyst track will learn that as well too. So sit down, go and observe people, watch them while they are doing their work. See how they make the call. See the kind of conversations they have with the customers. See how the software guys are debugging the whole system. See how they are improving the system. It will give you insights that you will not get if you just sit down behind your desk. So there's also something called the service safari. So service safari is, we can say that it's popularly, there's this thing that happens a lot in shopping where they get mystery shoppers. So mystery shoppers is like, I don't want to say that is equivalent to service safari, but it's like a step kind of in that direction. Like because when you're doing service safari, you're doing a more detailed work. You're not just trying to get one insight, and you're doing that as a professional, so to say. So whatever the service is, you try and experience the service. So even if you're trying to start your own hair salon, for instance, yeah, and you're brewing with fantastic ideas that is going to make you stand out from every other person in the world and all that, don't just go ahead and start your stuff. Go and experience other salons and take note of things that you're doing and all that. You might begin to realize things that are points of failures, things that are issues that they need to resolve, things that are very excellent stuff that you can adopt as well, and things like that. And if it's an existing business that you're trying to improve, before you go ahead and do all the different stuff, experience the service itself. It's an existing salon, they are looking to make it better. Go and experience it. Check your process, everything from how you left your house to how you committed to the salon and all that. You might realize that the biggest problem is even the road leading to the salon. The salon is very good, the stylist is very good, but the road is bad. So I can't bring myself to go into that place. And that's why the person is not making enough sales. No matter what you do in that place, it won't work. But if you realize that that is where the whole thing breaks, then you realize that to solve this, we need to change our location. It's as simple as that. When you're talking about a service design, it might be change the location of your prop. It might be we need to offer a home service or something like that. So by checking the whole thing end to end, so you don't pay attention until you start engaging with the business. From the beginning, how do I commit to this? So a good example for service safari, mainly because safari, I mean, is like a journey, isn't it? It's like, so if it's like a transport service you're trying to improve on, as one, you yourself is a boss, get into it. Is it an airline, get into the plane, use the service itself and take note of every little thing that you need to take note of, good, bad, and ugly. Take note of everything. Yeah. And then there's also something called ethnography. I mean, you can arguably put service safari as a sub of ethnography itself, but ethnography is deep study. Like ethnography is something that if there's anybody who study I think it's anthropology, here you get to see ethnography is from the name, is the study. It actually came from the study of an ethnic group, so to say. So if you're trying to understand a society, their way of life, how they do things, ethnography study involves like going to live there. You might be there for months, sitting down in coffee shops, going to the train stations, going to the schools, and just observing everything people do, attending their parties, trying to observe a full circle about how do they act in winter, how do they act in summer, and all those things like that, before you can say you have a full scope of how the people behave. So if you are looking at products of ethnography studies, for instance, there's a book that I have called Watching the English by Katie Fox. So this is a work of an anthropologist who's like observed the English people in England and how they behave. Why did they talk about the weather, for instance? Dig deep into all those things and document things like that. So sometimes, whether you're working in a business, you're a founder or something like that, paying attention to things like sociology and psychology helps you, because whatever problem, whatever service, whatever product you're creating is for people. And the more you understand people, the better you'll be speaking the language that they can relate to, the better you'll be offering a solution that they can relate to. So ethnography, something to also study the people. And now, if you're not necessarily delivering a solution for people within just one geographic location, so you want to have a way to study the people that are your target audience. For instance, if your target audience are students, you want to have a way of studying students. if you've been a student before, of course, you can take from your own lessons. You also take from lessons of others that you speak to around you, and then you actually go and see, because sometimes people tell you what they want to tell you, but when you're there observing things and taking all your notes, it helps you to get even deeper insight. So all this research is to get enough insight about the people you're trying to solve, do the service design for. And we've talked about Gemba Works, focused on the people working in the organization, Service Safari, what the customers are experiencing, Ethnography, maybe a larger audience of your existing customers and your target customers, and all that. So while you're doing all this, is to be able to get clarity on the people that you're solving for. Is Gemba is here, Gemba. So now, having done all of this, you now try to document your research, and there are some tools. So when you're in design, you don't try to like document with just some free flow notes and all that. So to be able to make sure that you're capturing different elements correctly and all that, there are different templates and artifacts that you can use in capturing these things. So some of these are like the personas. Some of you are familiar with that. You capture personas who tell you who are your users, how they behave, and things like that. There are different ways you can capture personas, the different framework or templates for capturing personas. So this tells you that who is a typical user, a married woman who is between this age and this age, who has this number of children, and all, depending on whatever solution, a young fresh graduate who is between this age and this age, looking to achieve XYZ, and then you capture some more insights about them. What is the income level of this person? Where are they located? Do they have access to internet and all that? So if you don't have clarity on, for instance, now, before we do this and say, oh, we're doing this program for fresh graduates, there is that clear assumption for the persona of the people we are solving for is that they have access to internet. That's why we can do this as a remote program. If not, if we don't have that assumption, you just do this as a remote program and nobody's attending. Okay, Bullets for asking to explain Gemba work in it. So the Gemba work is pretty much go and see. That's what Gemba work means. Go and see. So it's simple English. It means observation. So the people doing the work, go and observe them. Don't just listen to the feedback that they've given you alone. Sit down, observe them. And to make it effective, sometimes you want to observe them in a way that they don't know that you're observing them. Sometimes people observe using the CCTV camera around so that those people can, because if they know that you're observing, sometimes they might be doing extra. But so you see how people do things. You might realize that there might be a defined process in the company, but not everybody follows that defined process. Some people have shortcuts that they normally use in how they do things and all that. By observing, you will get insights on those shortcuts that they will not tell you if you're having conversation with them. So those are the things with Gemba work. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things that came from like Toyota or something like that, where you just walk around and see how. So it's like if you've had the terminology as well, so management by walking around. As a manager, you don't just sit down in the office and get a report from people. Walk around and see how people do within the business so that you can proactively identify problems that you need to solve, or proactively identify things that you need to promote and things like that. So that's pretty much Gemba work. And you can read more about it as well too. So personas, getting clarity on the people you're trying to solve for. Empathy maps is a step forward from the persona, which is trying to capture more details about the people as well. So like, what do they hear? How do they feel? How do they think? What do they do? Capturing those things as well too about your customers or your potential customers or your users of your service. And then you have the user journey or customer journey, which tells you how do these people go when buying this product. I mean, in doing all of this, for instance, in getting clarity on your customer journey, you get this from speaking to the customers. You get this even from like Service Safari, where you yourself also experience it. So you can document how all those things work. What do people do? At what points? If it's an e-commerce store, for instance, now, what do they see first? They see your stuff on Twitter, they click the link, they get to the website, they shop, they find something, they add it to their cart, then they leave it there and come back at the end of the month and pay. That is one typical user map to a persona. Another persona is somebody who only heard about your advert on TV, then Google the name of the company and buys what they want to buy and make the payment straight up, boom, like that. So you can have different customer journeys for different personas, really, because they would encounter you at different points and their user behavior will be different as well. So, but you can also have like an overarching one that this is what is most common, and you try to map what happens at each level, what level is down, what level are people struggling with, what level are people not happy with. That's the reason why you're documenting your user journey. So that's also giving you insight into where there are problems during the journey for these guys. It helps you visualize what you've learned from your customers so far. Then you move on to prototype for the service design. Now you've gotten all this insight from all these people. Before you prototype for the service design, of course, you're having another workshop again. Like that, that's why I call that point an initial workshop, because you have series of workshops as you go, because you're working collaboratively. You need to have ways of input from everybody and all that as you make progress during this stuff. So at the point of prototyping your service is you also have some documents that tells you, oh, this is how the service is going to look. So on paper, I can experience your service on paper. Oh, okay, so this will happen. This will lead to this. Oh, okay, yeah, this is lovely. Yeah. You're pretty much prototyping that service like a paper prototype to us. And one very key document that is used for that is called the service blueprint. There's supposed to be a comma, the customer lifecycle, comma, then the service blueprint. The service blueprint is like one of the most common documents that service designers create. Just like your UX designers would create wireframes, and your UI designers would create mock-ups. So what is most common for the service designers to create is a service blueprint. You know that even though your UX designer is creating your wireframes, there are so many things that UX designer has done before you got to that point. There's so many things that UI designer have done before you get to the point of giving you the mock-up. I've asked questions with people spoken to understand color scheme, color psychology, all of all those things. So the same way with the service designer as well. So the service blueprint is like the main thing that tells us the whole story. The service blueprint shows your customer journey, and it also shows your internal interactions between your employees or your team or your stakeholders or your suppliers, how everything connects together for that user customer journey to be realistic or something like that. So, and if possible, there's also something called the service staging. So service staging now is that let's move it beyond the paper. Since it's service, let's act it. Let's demonstrate. Let's set it up as a theater. Oh, you want to start selling this? Then we'll create a bit of a table. We'll put something on top, even though it's paper. Because when people experience, when they move around and touch and feel and talk and things like that, it becomes more real beyond what you've just documented in the paper. So you can act it out. Yeah, you can act it out, showing how everything would interact. And sometimes there's also something called the service origami that someone came up with to say that, or the origami that, so instead of like just acting and all that, you can decide to build, you can decide to like, as if you're trying to mold people and make tables, small thing. So if you've seen like a model, if you've seen like an architecture model, maybe you've been in a building before and you saw this model sitting on the table that shows you how the building would be, the roads would connect to it and all those things like that. Yeah, that's how like a service origami can work as well. You can create something like that for how everything would connect together across in the service. You know, it looks a bit more real, those kind of architectural building models compared to just the architectural plan that is on paper. So one has moved from 2D to 3D kind of thing. That's the same thing with like service as well. But if you stop at the level of service blueprints, that is fine, because it's difficult to like stage some things and there's a lot of activity and all that. So sometimes the service blueprint tells you the whole story. We'll look at this in our next class. Some of you who are very inquisitive would have Googled service blueprints already by now. You would have seen some templates on how it looks. So I was tempted to bring to at least show a snapshot of a service blueprint, but my concern is that if I do that, I might get lost to the point of digging deep to explain to you how it all comes together. But that is supposed to be for next class. Today, like I said, is just telling us what you need to do. Then the next class will tell you how you do it. So now, then by the time you've prototyped your service, you reviewed it with all the team, everybody looks at it, get feedback. It's not just a one-off document. You might have a service blueprint and you keep working on that service blueprint for the next 3 months, because you might present it, you look at it, you get feedback, you go back and rework some things. So you keep testing it and iterating it and making it better. So at some point when you now feel, okay, I think we are there now or something. And the truth is that you can't be fully there at all, because in an agile world today where things change very rapidly, you should be ready to adapt and adopt new practices even as the business is going on. You might be changing some things every 3 months. You might be changing some things every year or something like that. So, but at least at the level where you think, okay, we can roll with this now, then you can now document and put everything together, your service concept. Now, this is not the point where you start writing the service concept from scratch. Your service concept, all those documents you would have been creating from the beginning, you would have been putting them together. You would have been putting them together. So what you are doing here is not necessarily just documenting it. What you are doing here is pretty much compiling your service concept together, which is your document that tells us the whole story from the beginning, what you learned and all that, such that even when you leave that company or when you hand over that consulting effort, somebody else can pick it and saw everything you did from the beginning to the end, everything you've recommended, so to say. So everything you've done can be like your annex or something like that. I mean, different people document this differently. Some people can just document this on PowerPoint slides. You just have like 10 slides and they're good. Some other people who document this a full-on documentation that is like maybe 50 pages or something like that. So any which way, just document. Some people can even decide to even do a mix of videos and all that in documentation of the service concept. Just present us something that we can see, if possible, even touch and feel, that tells us the whole story about the service. So now look at this now. If there's any service you want to take them through this kind of a journey. So even if it's, let's say, a fintech startup, yeah, you reach out to fintech. Let me use an example of, those fintech companies that are having agents network across the country. That is becoming a very popular thing now in Africa. I mean, in Nigeria especially. You have Paga, which has been there for years. Then you have this other guys called Payforce, which is also around, and there's also a new one called Thrive Money, and there are a number of others. Those are the three that I know. So what do these guys do? Some of you have probably experienced their service before. Some of you have not experienced their service. So my parents, for instance, they live in Badagry, Lagos, and when they have money in their account, where they live, the closest bank to them is probably like a 40 minutes drive or something like that. So services like Paga comes in handy for them because they just walk up to a kiosk and they go withdraw, and they have to pay this maybe an extra, maybe 200 naira or something for every time they have to do a transaction there. So, and there's a fintech company behind all that. They have agents network all across the country. And some of those small kiosks transact a lot of money, millions every month, because imagine in a community where you have like maybe 10,000 people, and this one is coming withdrawing 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 and things like that. Extrapolate that, that's some huge figure. So now looking at the example of that kind of a service right now, where you have their agents network and things like that, you want to design the service for them. You know that that's a whole lot of work that you cannot just do by sitting behind the desk in the office. You need to go and visit some of their agents in different locations. Why? Because different agents in different locations will have different problems, will have different challenges. So you need to understand what is common thread. You need to sit around where a particular agent is and observe him, customers coming to transact with him and things like that. Jemba works, go and see the place where it happens. So service safari, you yourself convert yourself to the customer and go to some of those agents network and try to withdraw money, try to deposit money, and try to see how seamless the service is to document a lot of all those things like that. And if you're trying to create in a particular new location, you want to get into that location as well too, and try to just observe the people in that area and all that to see if it's going to be a good point, how are they going to take up that particular service, how many of them drive, because if there are more people driving in that particular community, they are more than likely going to I just drive their way to the bank or something like that. How many of them go to work every day, like that they have to drive to their office? So some of those people will probably just transact with an ATM on their way back home and things like that. So ethnography, looking at the group and understanding them and getting insights. So these are some of the things you will have to do. Then you come back to your desk, document all the findings that you've had. You have workshop with your team. Tell them this is what we've observed, this is what we've observed, this is what we've. Because the problem is that now that we are having a lot of those what do they call them again? All those there's a mobile money or something they call them, or agency banking, something like that. Now that you have a lot of them springing up and all that, what you start realizing is that some of them are just keep doing things the same way. Some of them are just having these services without necessarily having the service designed. So they just throw things together and it just works. But when they engage a service designer to walk through the whole process for them, they will be amazed at how much things they can improve on and make better, that can probably save them money or make them more money or make them more customers and things like that. So I just quickly paint that quick example to help us see that picture. So for me, for instance, I've done some service design projects that involve a fintech product that is just going to be created newly. I've done a service design process that involve an insurance service. I've done about a service design for an organization that involves a service of hiring and placing talents and things like that. So this has broad application, and like the example you discussed, which is on solving education, you can use the whole service design thing to also solve like societal problems as well too. So let's start wrapping up and see if we have some time for questions. So now some service design principles, and I said some because I mean when it comes to, you can't box and say this is everything, you know, so you just have to have like your own guidelines of what guides your decision making and things here and there. So one of those principles is that you need to be clear on what's the purpose of the service. You cannot design what you don't know. What's the purpose? You'd always start from the purpose of a thing, because they say that once the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So if you're not clear on the purpose of the service, what exactly are we trying to achieve, which are things you would have documented in your service intent, you might go ahead in the wrong trajectory. If the service is about making money, for instance, now if somebody said, design me a service where I can help fresh graduates, if the purpose of doing that is for that person to make money from it, and you ask him to go and do a program like this, you would have been given a wrong advice, even though your solution is good, but the purpose of that is different. But you need to be clear on how things match together. So you need to, one of the principles are you need to be clear on the purpose of the service. And sometimes the purpose might not be known by the time you start the work. And that's the thing you start extracting from your initial workshop, speaking to the client, speaking to the whoever is leading the organization and all that, to get clarity and extract this information from everybody to understand what are we trying to achieve, or who are we trying to be. That's the purpose. So the next thing is understanding your customer need. You cannot do service design without understanding the needs of the customers. Don't just say this is the needs of the company. You need to start from the needs of the customer, and then you bring it back into the company and then say, how does everything tie together? Does it work for us? We don't say because we want to meet customer needs, we'll just do it and then there is no ways that the business itself is getting results from it. So everything needs to tie together. And that's why you start from understanding the purpose. What are we trying to achieve? Then by that point, that would give us clarity on who are our customers, or who should our customers be. Then you go ahead and look for the customers and focus on the customers now to get what do they need. Then you come back to design to make sure that whatever you're designing meets what they need. Then you need to have, when you do service design, there should be a unified and efficient system. Everything needs to tie together. You can't do service design and say, this is that, this is that. All those, that's where the service blueprints comes in. It ties everything together. And let me just jump and finally say the MVS. Like I've said over and over earlier, that when you're designing, you release a prototype. So MVS is the minimum viable service. So you start with the minimum viable service. What's the very basic we can start with? So don't start with, we're trying to develop a school and this, and start with something basic first that can be easy. Your school that you want to start can start with a simple Saturday classes. And then you begin to get some feedback from people and things like that. A number of churches do that sometimes. When they're trying to start a church in a new community, they don't just go there. They don't just go and build a 5,000 seater capacity and start expecting people to flock in. They start with maybe like house fellowship. As they begin to get a number of people from there, they start doing maybe one service a month in one rented place. So that is minimum viable service, and you can scale it gradually. Oh, now we realize that we have a lot of people. Oh, okay, now it's time to get this capacity of hall or something like that. So whatever solution you're designing, you need to start with a minimum viable service. What's the basic thing that we can start with, and how can we scale it up from there? So any questions at this point? We have just like 12 minutes to go. Wow, no questions?
Hello, Mr. Derry. Good evening. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Good evening.
Okay, it's been an interesting session, and I would say I love your explanation to all the concepts mentioned. Quick one, I don't know, when can we start practicals also? Or am I being too fast?
So yeah,
really, I like everything, like the 5 whys, and it really boils down to we've not been like asking the right questions, or we've not been using the right techniques or so. But this really like opened my horizon to things, and getting to also ask the right questions so as to elicit the right information and then get to the right solution. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your response. So now, what I would expect of us, like I said at the beginning, as I've said earlier, is that so we have this two part of the program. We have people coming in for the training. We have people who are working with us as the interns who get a particular project that we are all collaborating on with us. So in that aspect, many of these things that has been explained now, as I'll be having a meeting with the intern to get clarity on how they can practically adopt all of this concerning the projects we're all working on. But for those who are not part of that internship program, because of course we can't have everybody in that, we have to have a minimum viable service, isn't it? Just a manageable size of people to start with. So for those of us who are not part of the internship, I still want us to take this as practically as possible. So what I would want of us to do is that these slides will be shared. So what we are trying to work towards is that I'm trying to see that sending emails back and forth, try to minimize it as much as possible. So there will be, I will make sure I work on that thing and make sure I achieve it. There is this thing called Google Classroom. So I'll go back there and try to update this on the Google Classroom thingy. And so they get the link across to you all such that you can now go back there and look at it. And then if I have information to get across, like an assignment you need to work on or something, will also be communicated there. You can pick it up from there and work on it as well too. So, but getting ahead of myself now to tell us that if you're not part of the internship, one thing I would advise is that, and even if you're part of the internship and you think you have enough time to do it, one thing I would advise is you work on, pick a service, preferably pick a service that is already existing, because that way you can, it will guide you, you can get some insights here and there and all that. And it would be best if it's something that, if it's a service you have some level of access to. Yeah, for instance, if you pick a service like the, if you are not working in the bank, it will be difficult because you don't have enough insights on the back end of all the things that are doing at the back. But maybe a place you've worked before, or that you have information on everything that happens on the back end to the front end level and all that. And it can be any service at all. You see, I made example of an hairdressing salon earlier. It can be an hairdressing salon. It can be a fashion design outfit. Yeah. So take such example and try to walk through this process that we've given for yourself and say, okay, yeah, this is it. And try to involve other people, yeah, with it. Try to involve other people with it. So you can connect with your friends, either within this or outside this program, to discuss together so that you can exchange ideas. Try to actually do these things. Don't just sit down behind your desk and type what you think. Actually speak to people, actually find out how they think, what they feel, what they want, and things like that, and follow through all this process. Like I said, I'll get this into the Google Classroom, hopefully it works out, and then I can get the link across to everybody so you can go there and find it. And if that does not work, then probably just download it and share the PDF with you all via email. So the challenge that we're probably having is the fact that so, we know some of you signed up for service design. Some of you are attending now and you didn't sign up for the service design stuff. We don't have a problem with it. So to just avoid sending communication that does not go to anyone, what we'll be doing is that every email that needs to go out for everything will be going out to everybody. So it's left to you to pick the ones that you want. So that's why we're trying to reduce the emails, because imagine we're going to have like 12 different sessions, and imagine we have 2 emails for every session. That's about 24 emails already. You might get lost which one is which one. So we'll try to put information in one particular location as much as possible, and the information to you will just be, you can go to this link and you can have access to this, and any further communication can be happening. That's why that Google Classroom is pretty good. I've just had a very busy week. I should have completed the setup, so we can continue conversation. I hope I answered your question correctly there, which is pick a project yourself and walk through all this processes, and hopefully we set up that Google Classroom. As you work on it, when you get stuck in any place, you can ask a question, somebody else can answer you, and things like that. And for those who are in the internship program, they will be using all of this in the projects that we'll be working on together anyway. So a question here says that Yeah, I've answered about getting the materials. Is service design part of business analysis? Are some of the principles and concepts are a bit related? Yes. So one thing you get to realize is that in the world of work, sometimes you begin to answer that. Why all this confusion, really? The truth is that there are so many people doing the service design work that don't have the title service designer. Some of them is probably even an operations manager that is working to make sure everything fits together. Some people are called customer experience manager and they're doing this work. Some people are called user experience professionals and they are doing service design. So not if you go on LinkedIn and search service design, you're not going to find so many anyway. In fact, that particular video that I was going to play to you, the lady who was talking about service design there is a UX professional. Yeah. My focus, for instance, as an individual is business design as well too. So it's like, okay, so how does so many people do service design that are not called service designers. The same thing with business analysis. So many people do business analysis and they are not called business analysts, because in the business analysis class you see different titles that are related to business analysis. But to now answer your question directly, they are different to an extent in their approach, because a business analyst can cut across so many things. A business analyst can be working on a service design project. A business analyst can be working on a IT software as a service project. Business analyst can be working on data analysis. A service business analyst. So a business analyst is one of the most broad roles ever created in this world, because the business analysts work to different. Some business analysts do user experience work. Some of them even get to the extent of doing user interface design as well too. So business analysis is one of those most broadest category of role in this life that it can mean anything and so many things in different categories, really, really broad. So a business analyst can work on a service design project, but that does not necessarily make a business analyst a service designer. Yeah. So that's it. I'd like to ask how I would know if I'm part of the internship. I've carefully gone through the mail, but I don't see it clear stated. Okay, yeah, so sorry about that communication. I should have been clearer when I sent the communication about all this, about all the classes, is that the people selected for the internship have already been notified. They've been onboarded already. They're already at work, even really. So, and I must say to us that the selection is not purely, this is me confessing here, the selection is not purely, what's the word? It's not purely merit-based, because I try to make sure that we get minimal information from everybody, because that decision about people to select, we don't want it to be based on we want to select intelligent or smart people alone. We just want to select people at random, really. Of course, we factored in some things, and the main thing we looked at was the essay that we asked for. Yeah, so when looking through the essay, some people just caught our attention from the first line, we just selected them. Some people said almost the same thing that I read. Some people said some very intelligent stuff, but by the time we finish selecting 50, we can't diligently read through. I mean, we try to read everybody, but I think some places where some people were a bit is that some places like especially business analysis and project management, where we had a lot of people picking those two tracks, we couldn't in detail go through everything for those two especially. So as at the point when we've selected some number of, oh, this is more than enough business analysts. Otherwise, we'll be selecting all our 50 as business analysts alone. So we had to just jump and move to the next thing. So that's why I said that it's not purely merit-based. So some of you wrote something but we were careful to make sure that we did that selection based on how you. So even when we're looking at business analysts, for instance, they are based on how you filled in the form. So we looked through the first set of submissions first. So the advantage here was more of those who submitted earlier. Yeah, and those who also picked maybe career path tracks that are not very popular. So they also get an advantage of us being able to read through everybody and pick the ones that we think as at that point is the best, that is not necessarily the best, because really and truly nobody, there is none of the answers from all the essay that we can just go ahead and implement today. Because after hearing your 5 whys now, if many of you go back to what you've written in your essay with the 5 whys, you realize that there are some things deeper than that. But there was one particular response particularly that was outstanding there. This person was very logical in the sense that gave us some bit of, okay, this is the number of unemployment, and this is the number of jobs we need to create. So we'll do this particular approach to create 5 million jobs. We'll do this particular approach to create 10 million jobs. We'll do this particular approach to create X. It was just one person that gave that particular kind of response, and that was very, very insightful, and we loved it. So that's just one of the examples. There's the other examples as well, to where somebody gave us our personal story, and that was touching. So when we saw that, we're like, no, we cannot say no to this person. Yeah, somebody gave us story like, well, we need to encourage more private companies to roll out more graduate programs. Some of them that have rolled out graduate programs are only favoring people who are first class and second class alone. And this person mentioned that he or she had the third class and things like that. I was like, okay, you are interested in this, we are happy to help, because we don't believe that first class or second class is the true measure of intelligence. There are people who didn't make very good grades from school, maybe out of personal struggles or something like that, or the system of teaching was just terrible or something like that. So I'm painting this thing out now so that when we are feeling things like this next time, it helps. Personal story helps. There was from the very first stage, when somebody engaged with me on LinkedIn, I think, and I responded to the person that, okay, the person gave a response that, oh, I've been looking for this kind of opportunity for so long. I'm so happy. When we saw that enthusiasm, we had to embrace it. So it's not all about, when writing essays, this as a general feedback to everybody, when writing essays, sometimes personal stories sometimes really, really does help, because the person reading it can connect with you. You understand. So these are just some of the things that were, and another thing is that some people who were deliberate in calling out numbers, who says some people did not even do any research at all. They just wrote something. And we saw one particular person who did a research and went online and copied and pasted one particular stuff. I think a lot of people got their source from Nairametrics or something like that. So well, we saw a bit of common thread. So anything that you do that just makes you different from others catches the attention. So there are different things that caught our attention from different people's survey that helps us to make that that decision. So if you've not been selected for this, that does not mean that you are probably, that does not mean that your submission was not excellent. That's why I went into the process of doing all those explanation to how we selected it. But nevertheless, fingers crossed, and we'll be having the next batch at some point. Any other question? Our time is out. So I don't think I can take any question. We need to stick to time. Thank you very much, everybody, for today. Don't forget what you need to work on, and they will be sending the email out to everybody as well to get the next steps on what you need to work on in this and how to access the slides and all that. So have a beautiful evening, everybody. And for those who are on business project management, we'll be seeing them in the class tomorrow. Bye.